most of the GOP is in line with the president's decision to strike Iranian nuclear sites. Not everyone is on board.
There was no imminent threat to the United States. We haven't been briefed. They should have called us all back. And frankly, we should have debated this war powers resolution that Ro Khanna and I offered instead of staying on vacation and doing fundraisers and saying, oh, well, the president's got this under control. We're going to cede our constitutional authority.
President Trump forcefully responded to Republican Massey there, pledging to help primary him. He posted on Truth Social, in part, "We will have a wonderful American patriot running against him in the Republican primary, and I'll be out in Kentucky campaigning really hard." And Democrats are furious with President Trump.
It is so grossly unconstitutional. All of you know that the only entity that can take this country to war is the U.S. Congress. The president does not have the right.
Many Democrats, including AOC, are calling Trump's actions an impeachable offense. Joining us now to react is Air Force veteran and Florida Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna. Thank you very much, Representative, for joining us on this Sunday night. We greatly appreciate it. I want to get your thoughts as the political back and forth is heating up, seemingly mostly along party lines. What do you think?
You know, I just wish that these people would be more transparent with the American people on what is considered constitutional, not. You know, under President Trump's Article 2, Section 2 authorities, if he's protecting national interests or responding to imminent threat, he actually can authorize, and it's very constitutional, a precision strike. In fact, I think the White House has done a great job specifying that they don't want to go to war. And so what you're seeing right now is really a break. Unfortunately, you know, these are the same people that said nothing when, you know, Biden was authorizing massive munitions to Ukraine that could have gotten us involved in an altercation with Russia, and also say nothing about Obama holding the same stance and viewpoint as President Trump on Iran.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I could go down a long list, quite frankly. Libya, Pakistan, Yemen, Somalia, Iraq, and Syria, where we have seen a previous president decide to utilize ordnance when necessary, again, to protect our national interests. I just want to get your opinion about party fissures. It seems like when we have these conversations, and we do fairly often, the Democrats tend to stick together no matter what. What is it about the GOP that there's always like voices of dissent? Why is that?
Well, I don't want to say that the Democrats are always lockstep, because right now, specifically on the Israel issue, Democrats are definitely fractured. But what I will say specifically is, you know, I know Representative Massey. I've agreed with him on many issues, to include the Second Amendment. But I can't back his stance on what President Trump is doing is, quote unquote, unconstitutional, because that's not true. What he has done is well within his guidelines and authority as a president of the United States. So what I will tell you is that there's a lot of people right now that are using this to fundraise. And I would tell those people that right now is not the time to bring politics into this. We need to think about our country, our foreign policy, and really de-escalating the situation. We want peace, not war.
So, Congresswoman, Thomas Massey aside, apparently he doesn't think that 46 years of murdering and maiming Americans is enough to destroy a regime that wants to get nuclear weapons. That's fine. But if Democrats want to be briefed on important matters like this, it seems like they should stop acting like clowns. You know, this is not a joke. And yet you have people like Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett demanding to be briefed on this. What is your perspective on just the state of the Democratic Party and their ability to really actually handle very serious matters on behalf of their constituents?
Well, at any one time, any member of Congress can request a SCIF briefing from the House Intelligence Community. Even Ms. Crockett can request that at any time specifically to this. So to say that, you know, we're not getting briefs or don't have access to information, again, that's not true. But I will actually go a step further. And I think a lot of people are missing the fact also that Iran did indeed try to assassinate President Trump. And even after the fact, President Trump was still willing to engage in peace negotiations. Xi Jinping and Putin both encouraged Iran to negotiate, and Iran would not negotiate. And so we fly back tomorrow. We'll be in for our intelligence briefing for the entire House on Tuesday. And so we'll be given access to the information that the president had as well. But what I would continue to say is that we do have a very real threat. The State Department's just issued a warning to all Americans of potentially imminent threats on terrorist attack on U.S. soil. And under the last administration, over 1,200 Iranian illegals came to the United States and were released into U.S. territory. So this is not a joke. Obviously, we do not want war, but we are dealing with people that are not logical in regards to negotiations right now.
Congresswoman, we're playing the what if, and I really hate that. But get an understanding of where people are on the Hill. Say Iran does retaliate, Russia jumps in. There is some sort of war where the president feels like he needs to send troops into combat in some way, shape, or form. At that point, do you believe, as a member of Congress, that Congress should be voting and having a say? Or do you think that it's still the president's authority?
I think, obviously, at that point, if there's a retaliatory strike, that Congress will have that discussion. But I am hoping, and again, I do not like playing the what-if game, I'm hoping that it does not result in that. The president, the administration has been very clear about not harming any U.S. soldiers. And so I would ask everyone to pray for our service members and foreign officers that are currently deployed, because they are indeed the ones on the front lines right now.
All right, Anna Paulina Luna, Congresswoman, thank you so much for joining us tonight and offering your analysis and your knowledge. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.